Welcome Arithmetic Ninjas to finding larger percentages such as 45%, 55%, 65% and 85%. Now you'll notice that all of those end in a 5%. So we're going to start by finding just 5% of 4,000. Well, to find 5% you first need to find 10%. And to find 10% you can just divide the whole thing by 10. So 4,000 divided by 10 is going to be 400. If there is a 0 there to be knocked off, you can just knock off 1 0. And that will have the same effect as dividing by 10. So 10% is 400. And that means 5% is going to be half of that. Well, half of 400 is 200. So the final answer to the first question, 5% of 4,000 is 200. Now, in all the other questions, we're also going to start by finding 10%. So let's do that first, because 10% is like a master key that unlocks lots of doors. On question 8, if we start with 10%, 10% of 400, knock that 0 off, or divide by 10, 400 divided by 10 is 40, so 10% is 40. On question 12, again, start with 10%, so 10%, knock the 0 off, or divide by 10, 3,000 divided by 10 is 300. On number 18, 10%, knock the 0 off, or divide 9,000 by 10 is 900. And on question 20, again, we'll find 10%, knock the 0 off, that's going to be 1,200, or 12,000 divided by 10 is also 1,200. Now, what we've got to do now, like we said earlier, 10% is like a master key that unlocks a lot of doors. So we've got to build our 10% back up to the percentage that we're being asked for. So we're going to build our 10% back up to 35%. Now the easiest thing to do first of all is to build it back up to 30%. So if you times 10% by 3, that's going to give you 30%. So that means we need to times 40 by 3, and that will give us what 30% is equal to. So 3 lots of nothing is nothing, and 3 lots of 4 is 12. So 30% must be worth 120. But that's not the final answer, because we want 35%. So what we must do now is go back to our 10% and say, well, if 10% is worth 40, 5% is going to be half of that, which is half of 40. So that's going to be 20. So we've got 30% is our 120 and 5% is just our 20. Now if we add those two together, we'll get our final answer. So 120 add 20 is 140, and that's our final answer, 140. On question 12, we need to build our 10% back up. Now we need to get to 40% first, so if we do 10% times 4, that is going to give us 40%. Now if we're timesing the 10% by 4, we need to times the 300 by 4. 4 lots of nothing is nothing, 4 nothings are nothing, 4 threes are 12. So 40% is 1,200, but we need an extra 5% on top of that. So if we go back to the top, if 10% is 300, 5% is half of that. So that's going to be half of 300, which is 150. So this extra 5% is 150. So if we add on our 150 to our 1,200, which is 40%, we'll get 45%, which is what we're actually after. So that's nothing plus nothing is nothing, nothing plus 5 is 5, 2 plus 1 is 3, and 1 plus nothing is 1. So the final answer to this question is 1,350. Question 18, we've already got the 10%. Let's build that back up to 60%. So if we times that by 6, that's going to give us 60%. But we can't just times the 10% by 6, we need to times 900 by 6 as well. And that will give us 60%. 6 lots of 0 is 0, 6 zeros are 0, and 6 nines are 54. So 60% is 5,400, but we need that extra 5%. So if we go back to just above the 10% and half it, that's going to be 5%. Well, 10% was 900, So 5% is going to be half of that. Half of 900 is 450. And what we've got to do now is add on our 450 to our 5,400, because that is adding our 60% to our 5% to get 65%. Nothing and nothing is nothing. Nothing and 5 is 5. 4 and 4 is 8. 5 and nothing is 5. So the final answer to that question is 5,850. Question 20. Again, we've already got our 10%. Let's build that back up. So let's times that by 9 and we will get 90%. So we need to times 1200 by 9. Find out what 90% actually is. 9 nothings are nothing. 9 nothings are nothing. 9 twos are 18. Put the 8 in, carry the 1. 9 ones are 9, plus the 1 is 10. So 90% is 10,800. But we need an extra 5%. Well, 5% is going to be half of whatever 10% is. Well, half of 1,200 is 600. So we need to add on an extra 600 to 10,800. So add those together. See what we get. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0 again. 8 and 6 is 14. Put the 4 in, carry the 1. Nothing plus the 1 I've just carried is 1. 1 plus nothing is 1. Final answer, 11,400. Now we're running out of a little bit of room here, so let's just make a bit of space so we can put our final answer in. Answer number 20, 11,400. Now we've tried those few questions together, why don't you go back and try the ones that we've missed? Good luck.